One area that I thought I disagreed with Donald Trump when he used to come out and say that people in Washington were that they were incompetent or they were stupid, and I used to think, no, it's not that. They're just self-centered, looking out for number one. I didn't think that there was necessarily incompetence, but then along comes the Obama White House dealings with Iran, and you say, you know what? Trump's right. They're incompetent. It's 844. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Hey, I want to mention coming up on February 18th, that's a few weeks away still. That'll be our next meeting with Idaho Fish and Game, and we'll have, of course, a discussion here in the studio for about an hour that morning on all of the latest news that's taking place within Idaho Fish and Game. Kelton Hatch is on a short hiatus right now, but he'll join us next month. And of course, Kelton was mentioning, we've got hunting seasons winding down, which may be why he's on hiatus. He's out there shooting tasty animals as we speak. Speaking of that, High Desert Meat Processing processes one animal at a time. What you bring in is exactly what you're going to get back. Darren Van Horn is the owner of High Desert Meat Processing in Twin Falls. He's got more than 30 years' experience in the meat business. Visit High Desert Meat Processing on Facebook and read reviews of other customers. Give High Desert Meat Processing a call for all of your wild game and domestic processing needs, 734-9949. High Desert Meat does in-house smoking. Nothing gets shipped out. Specialty meats such as jerky, salami, summer sausage, pepperoni, breakfast sausage, kielbasa, Polish dogs, brats, excuse me. I got to get rid of that old inland north dialect. Hot dogs and much more, USDA approved, and Darren works closely with local beef growers and their programs to ensure quality meat, 734-9949. So we've got, at least the good news is that Pastor Abedini has been released, and here's some sounds, prayer as his family met him, along with the Reverend Franklin Graham.
Yes, Lord, we worship you. We thank you, Lord, for this beautiful time. God, you are awesome. You are faithful. Thank you, Lord. You are wonderful. We worship you. Thank you, Jesus.
That's tears of joy coming from family and friends as he touches down and returns to America. Great news. One of the biggest stories probably in Idaho of all of 2016 so far. Meanwhile, John Kerry, Secretary of State, you may know the fellow very well. Yeah, that's him. He used to answer the door at the Adams family house. The question often for him is, why the long face? John Kerry has said it is very possible that the $1.5 billion that we are handing over to the Iranians could well be used to finance terrorism, which, of course, could kill Israelis and Americans. What? Josh Earnest, the White House spokesman, asked this question yesterday and pretty much concurred.
Well, he began by saying, I think, and I think that reflects his, I think, rather logical conclusion that a nation that supports terrorism may use some of the money that's coming into the country to further support terrorism. Now, the thing that's important for people to recognize is that our critics of this agreement often exaggerate the sanctions, the value of the sanctions relief that Iran will obtain. And they often overlook the rather severe economic priorities that are badly underfunded inside of Iran. There are a number of bills that are already past due that Iran needs to pay. There are significant investments in their infrastructure that also need to be made because they're already having an impact on their economy. And I've seen at least one economic analysis that indicates that that Iran is not going to immediately bring all of the available money into the country because it would have the effect of artificially appreciating their currency, which would, further.
Man, is he going down a rabbit hole?
Their economy. So, I guess that is why we have been pretty honest about the fact that this agreement is not going to resolve all of our concerns with Iran's bad behavior, and it is entirely likely, and I think it's even expected, that Iran will continue to support terrorism.
Yeah, they may done blow us up before it's all over with, but we understood that going in. And, we're bad people ourselves here in America. Someone needs to give us the comeuppance we've always deserved. Mr. Obama feels the same way. Being the son of a colonial subject of the British Empire, we cannot have big colonial empires around the world. We need to make sure that the Muslim world has a say in affairs. And if they want to blow us up, well, it's only fair, obviously. This guy, and I cut that off. That was under 2 minutes. He rambled on like that for 4 minutes plus after being asked the question yesterday during a briefing. For 4 minutes. Uh, 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 all the long pauses. You're waiting for the crickets to come home during the middle of all of that. 10 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. You can reach the show by dialing 736-0300, 736-0300, and also send me an email if you like at bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. And you're up next. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bill. It's just plain treason what they're doing. I mean, to give these guys any kind of money, this whole agreement is just absolutely national suicide. National suicide. That's really what it's all about. But when you look at the staff up there in the White House, you got Valerie Jarrett, who's a Muslim born in Iran. You got, I think, about 10 others up there. Our whole foreign and domestic policy is to help them win and for us to lose. I mean, domestically, we're in the doldrums. Look at what's happening around us, folks. Wake up and smell the roses, because we are being deceived by our president and our leaders and the Congress that absolutely just keeps voting, giving him more money to implement all of these plans that are destroying our jobs, our economy. And when are we going to wake up and stop this nonsense?
Great question. I thank you very much for the input this morning. And reminds me of a line from this Cal Thomas column today. Expecting Iran to use this windfall for purposes other than terrorism would be like expecting a kidnapper to donate the ransom money to a children's hospital. And Mr. Thomas points out, when these assets were frozen 37 years ago now, it was $400 million. The reason Iran received $1.5 billion is because Mr. Obama said that was appropriate interest. Appropriate interest that they were tossing into all of this. Now, we're hearing politicians on his side of the aisle yell and scream about how they're going to have to tax us to death to pay for all of the good things they're going to do for us in the future. And they're giving a reparations payment to people who took our embassy over and held, 100-some-odd Americans for 440 days as hostages while constantly threatening to kill them during that time period. That was under the Jimmy Carter administration, if you recall, those of you old enough. And for those of you who don't know much about the Arabic language, Obama is an Arabic word for Carter. And then I've got this page 2 of the column by Cal Thomas. In a brazen display of chutzpah, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said that when it comes to the nuke deal, it's the U.S. that needs monitoring because it simply cannot be trusted. He may have a point when it comes to the Obama White House. After all, I was in the Tea Party movement, and while they were hammering away at people from the IRS just to intimidate them from the Obama regime, clearly, yes, I would not trust them. But it just seems strange coming out of the mouths of an Iranian. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on KLIX. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bill. Two topics. First of all, I donated some money at Christmas time for the people at the senior citizens, and I'm going to write them another check today so that they can cover some of their expenses for the people that deliver expenses for gasoline and maintenance on their vehicle. But lastly, Donald Trump has a lot of good things to say, but he spoils it when he does his imitation of Red Skelton with all his facial expressions when he demeans people.
Such as when he's doing it during a debate. Thank you much for the call. I've seen that. The cameras have, the networks have figured out if you keep a camera on Trump while someone else is speaking, the eye rolls and the movements with his mouth. He does know how to entertain. Political campaigns generally don't interest people because it's the same dullards over and over and over again. When I hear people like Bob Dole saying Bob Dole doesn't support Ted Cruz, Bob Dole thinks Ted Cruz would be bad for America. Remember, Bob Dole also opposed Ronald Reagan, and there you go, another guy with a personality of a log. I met Bob Dole in 1986, I believe it was, because I was going to a bridge dedication over a big lake. They had to build this bridge and replace the ferry boat that had been taking people back and forth across the lake for 100 years. His wife was then transportation secretary under Ronald Reagan. She could not make it, so she sent Dole along to actually do the ceremony and the presentation and the ribbon cutting. And I got to meet him, but I thought it was funny. He was doing a photo avail outside. We were standing by this great big old bathhouse next to this lake, and he's doing photo. People are coming along, and he's getting his photograph taken with them. And a guy walks up with his dog and says, "Oh, hold on a minute." Well, Dole, of course, because of his war wounds from World War II, he doesn't use his right hand. Well, Dole says, "Well, let me hold the dog," and so the guy gave him the leash. Dole took it in his left hand. And then the guy walked away. There's Bob Dole standing there with this guy's dog, and nobody knew where the guy had wandered off to. It was well worth it. I just thought to put Bob Dole directly in his place that day. 8:55, Bill, and Reagan was still gracious enough to give Dole's wife a job after what Dole did to him in 1980. 8:55, you're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley. Go ahead. You're on KLIX.
Good morning. I think that Donald Trump, with his self-centered arrogance, is a white version of Barack Obama.
Oh, I think he'd be more like a Muhammad Ali type of approach when it comes to personality.
Well, I agree with you there too.
And thank you for the call. It's just it's salesmanship. Trump knows exactly what he's doing with all the bluster. This is it's even a guy like Ali, and I'm not praising Muhammad Ali by any means after what that man did. He did know, though, when he came home from the Olympic Games, and he came home from the Games, I believe, in Rome after he'd won the gold medal, and he was going out fighting professionally, and he said, I might get a couple of hundred people who were turning out for a fight. And then one night, someone took him to see a pro wrestling match where all the guys are walking around and they're pointing at the audience and they're shouting and making threats, and they're all blowhards. He said there were thousands of people who came out to see wrestling. And Ali realized, you know what? If I adopt that type of personality in the ring, and I go out and point my fingers at the crowd and shout about how great I am and how I'm going to beat the other guy up, people are going to come see me because they hope that I get beat up. He knew how to sell it. That's all. And Trump is doing pretty much the same thing. People that have met Donald Trump in his office say that he is an entirely different personality, very self-deprecating and very calm versus what you see when he's in public. And for all of the talk that Donald Trump is an angry candidate, he's having the time of his life. I mean, he brings people up on stage, and he mentioned a magazine cover at one of his rallies. Somebody had the magazine, and they waved it at him in the audience. He brought the woman up on stage. They showed the audience the magazine, and then he had a conversation with her about where she was from and how did she like America because she was originally Colombian, and they got into a big discussion on stage, and he's just very good in those situations. And then you look at a guy like Jeb Bush, it's like he's got a stick up his backside. You look at him, you think this guy's constipated. What's wrong with him? And then Kasich. Well, I think that I'm doing better in New Hampshire now, where there are a lot of liberal Republicans that we call moderates in media, and the media loves me too because I'm a dullard and I'm not really very conservative, and so therefore the media is promoting me, and I'm gonna finish second in that primary before I finish last in all of the others, and I think that will propel me to the nomination. I don't want any more of that. Haven't we had enough of that? We at least need somebody who can put a little excitement back into all of this. And because as our first caller said today, that's the definition of leadership, is someone who gets out there and says, all right, let's go. And they fire you up and they get you to follow them. That, I think, is key. Cruz has quite a bit of that going for him too as well. He just doesn't quite have the natural flow of speaking style that Trump has. It's that Texas twang, I suppose. 8:58, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. It's 30. One more hour of the program ahead. Hope you can stick around. Oh, I've got to mention this. If we get a chance, we'll delve into this in the next hour. State senator or legislator is reviving an idea that would take children away from their parents if parents rely on faith healing, because obviously the government always knows better. If we get an opportunity, I'd like to get to that in the next hour.